All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is, I believe, 3:01 or so we want to be efficient with time here. My name is Larry Campbell. As you can see on the slide here, I'm the Senior Director of Talent and DE&I for Otis Americas and World Headquarters. I'm joined by my illustrious guest here. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Dornell. I am the Executive Director of Sales and Marketing for Otis Americas, and I'm very happy to be here today and to meet with you. So, you ready to get started? Are y'all ready? All right.
So this is going to be a chat, I guess, a fireside chat. We're going to talk a little bit up here about her experience, her interactions, leadership, and we're going to get a little bit of crowd participation from you, if you don't mind, just to not make this so dull that she and I are the only ones talking, okay?
Think of this as a real talk.
So again, thank you for joining us for Woke, the Minds of Black people. And so we're going to get started. What I want to start with is really allow Courtney some time here to introduce herself to you and just give you a little background on her upbringing and her career.
All right. So I was created in Houston, Texas, some decades ago. What? H-Town, right?
Yeah.
And I am a nerd. I grew up in the space community, NASA. I was a NASA Scholar undergrad. I went to Spelman College, so I don't know if anyone in the house is from Spelman or Morehouse, AUC. I did physics there, and I did math and civil engineering at Georgia Institute of Technology, also called Georgia Tech. Right out of school, I went and worked as an engineer because that's what I went to school to do. I worked on jet engines. I did thermal barrier coatings for airfoils. I programmed a robot named Bob. I had to go to robotics school to do all of that. But a couple years in, I decided it's not for me. I wanted to go meet my girlfriends after work. I was working in Dallas at the time. I had to go change because I was in a Tyvek suit. I couldn't just go right out. And so I talked to our HR business partner, Kathy Clark, and she introduced me to Otis and Carrier. At that time, we were all part of United Technologies. It used to be UTX, now it's Raytheon Technologies. And I ended up at Otis. And so I went into sales not knowing a single thing about sales because everything I'd done up to that point was engineering. But elevators are in buildings. It's kind of the nerves of a building, if you must. And so I could understand drawings, diagrams. And so I thought, okay, if I could just help people understand the elevator, I could, sell to them that way. I was more of a consultant. And so I was quite good at that. And somehow I ended up in sales and marketing. I did take advantage of the Employee Scholar Program. And I went to Columbia Business School. I did the IMPA Americas program there. And I worked all over. I worked in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, New York, South America, which was amazing, New York. And now I'm back in Houston, which is home, but I travel all the time. So that's just a little bit
All
about
right,
me.
all right. So being from Houston, right, which is considered one of the, highly populated black cities in America, what's something surprising, I guess, you want people to know about you?
I don't know if I want people to know, but the thing that I think people are kind of surprised about sometimes with how I grew up was I didn't grow up around a lot of black people. I was in a bubble. And even in my household, my father is multiracial. If you saw him, you may think that he is Italian or he's tan skin, green eyes. I also had a live-in nanny growing up, and she was from India. And I actually love Bollywood, and I can speak a little Hindi. But, so I had a very diverse room or household, and it wasn't really until I went outside my bubble that, I learned I was black. So my experience, my first, black experience was when I went to Spelman. And that's why I went to Spelman, because I wanted to... Spelman?
Well, that's a Spelman, like,
yes, my Spelman sister, yes. So that's why I chose Spelman, because I wanted to have something different from what I was used to growing up.
Awesome. So when we talk about leadership, as you said, a lot of people have shaped your leadership style and who you are today. Talk about one or two of the most influential people for you.
My mother, I can't even, I mean, I don't even have to think about it. My mom. My mother is a physicist and an engineer, but worked in finance. She actually did the budget for the space shuttle program. And so growing up, I, saw my mother working for the government, and she went all the way to SES. So anyone that works in the government may be familiar with your G. I don't know where you start with the Gs, but G15 is like the highest, and then you go to the SES. So mom got there, and I got to sit, at dinners and listen to her, talk about frustrations of when she was trying to get to the next level, and hearing about the people that they chose over her, who, by the way, she would have to train. And so for me, I got to live with the example of what I didn't know at the time is things that I would go through as I went into the workforce. So my mother is definitely one. And then within our corporation, I'd say a woman named Robin Fiala. She was Brooke Stillings back then. She led sales and marketing for Otis Americas. I kind of looked at her as like, that's what I want to get to. And now she's the vice president of marketing for all of Otis Elevator globally. And she's still a good mentor, but she's taught me, I've watched how she definitely reached behind her and pulled not just women, but people to different places in the organization. So I try to emulate that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Courtney. A few years ago, I think the term woke was probably not used a lot in corporate America, right? And so a lot has transpired over the last couple of years, definitely. And I guess I want to start with the audience, a little participation by the audience right here. When we say the term woke, what does it mean for you? Any volunteers want to share?
Don't be shy.
I'm going to walk a little bit because I don't like sitting down all the time.
I like sitting. I got on heels.
No, I was just going to say what this brother said. You're just aware. You just know what's going on. You're not oblivious to your surroundings.
Thank you. Okay. Good point. Good point. First.
Connie Wallace from Fox I think that catalyst or capitalism when you last statement, woke to me in the best sense means that you have really good emotional intelligence. It means that you're not only self-aware, but you understand your environment around you and you're able to regulate the behavior, but you still understand that at all times.
I hope someone's recording that because I want to make sure I can capture that.
Yeah. So, Courtney, what does it mean for you?
I don't have to say it. I think it's Tanya got it, and it's really. I think different people have different definitions of it, but it's what everyone who has spoken said. It is an emotional intelligence. It is an awareness, and it is definitely. I think the next step is how you interact and how you show up in this environment. And I was joking with Larry and I go way back because I've been with the company for 20 years, so we go way back. But when this conference came up and they were saying reimagining the classics and what do you want your topic to be? And I actually saw a news headline that was talking about something about woke. And I was like, what is it? Like, really? This is okay? Because we've been saying it forever, right? And so I said, reimagining the classics. And at Spelman, I had to take African diaspora for 2 semesters. It was a great class. We read W.B. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folk. And I was just like, what would he say today about corporate America? And so that's how we came up with the woke, the minds of black folk. But it is something where, everybody's woke now in the corporate America, or at least they're aware. And so it's interesting things that I'm seeing, at least within our organization, with people who've been woke and some that are just now waking up to what's going on.
Yeah, so you talked about within our organization, right? What was an incident or a particular time that really was an awakening for us that, kind of was a pivotal moment that we kind of turned the corner with that?
For Otis specifically, but I believe that probably for many companies out there was in 2020. And with the murder of George Floyd. And many things had happened before then, but for whatever reason, maybe it was because we're in a pandemic and everyone's, sheltering where they are and we're a bit disconnected, but that event is what I believe for our company really, really set it off. And I remember, because it was my sister's birthday and I was getting ready for a quarterly business review. And, I saw it. I saw what happened and I was just like, okay, I can't address it right now. I just got to get through this. And, I got through the review and then, and at this time I was living in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale. And a little bit of time had passed and I went to Miami, to Overtown to see this mural that someone had created, a beautiful mural for George Floyd. And I went, I sat there probably for a couple of hours just admiring it. And I went back and I cried for 2 hours or so. And then I started writing. And it started out just going to be like a simple LinkedIn post, and it turned into a LinkedIn article. And then I did something that is out of character for me about sharing personal feelings, and I posted it. And what it did was it was a catharsis for me that I didn't realize I needed. It actually got picked up by the Wall Street Journal. And some other Black executives, they featured us in an article, and there's a couple of other news outlets that have interviewed me about, what's like as a Black executive. But internally at the company, again, I've been there for 20 years. At that time, it was 18 years, but 20 years. And people who I had known had never heard about my experience. And I wrote about simple experiences. I didn't even go to the raw. But they called me, and it helped them have a conversation that I don't think we ever would have had. And so I went to Larry, and I was like, this is an opportunity for us to really allow people to talk about what's going on. And we had already created something through our ERG that allows people to talk in a safe space. So we were like, let's open this up, let's do this. And it turned into a beautiful thing. And so, at Otis, I am very, very happy that, all of the leadership is leaning in. And even our CEO, Judy Marks, wrote to each of us personally and was like, how can I help? What can we do? How do I support? And for me, that was the biggest woke moment in our company.
And, I recall 2017 when we set the ERG up, right? There was a lot of back and forth. We had some spirited conversations because we were setting up a ERG. It was for Black people. And there was an argument because sometimes we as Black people want to make sure we're not ostracizing or we're not disincluding other people, right? And so there was an argument, should we call it the Black ERG or people of color? And so we had a few rounds with that. And so the flash from 2017 to now is like, 180-degree turn. And so talk about that experience for you, Courtney.
Yeah, so the heated, spirited discussion was definitely Larry and I. I think I was in South America at the time, and, up until, to be honest with you, even when I had started out, I had not joined any of the employee resource groups, the Black ones, or any, for that matter, in the company, because I just was like, I'm already different. Why do I need to be in something else that's different? And, but I remember a LinkedIn post in 2016. And it was probably like 15 Black people in front of the African American Museum from United Technologies, and it was the Black executives from UTC. And I was like, who are these people? Because I didn't know that, other than one, I did not know that we had Black executives. And I remember I did a screenshot of that post, and I contacted the one person I knew in there, and I said, who are these people? Where have they been hiding? And how do I get there? And that's when I said, I will join Momentum, and I don't think we have the name yet, but I wanted to be a part of this group because we need to see each other. We need to help each other get to where we want to go. but I wasn't ready to just be all black in everybody's face. I was like, can we do it kind of soft? Let's tiptoe in it. And
Yeah,
we got there though.
we got there.
We're all blackness now.
And it is great because we do have a voice now. And our voice is heavily considered in any decisions that are made in the company when it comes regarding our people. So that's a great thing. Let's jump a little bit here to talking about the double consciousness or imposter syndrome. Something, we all may deal with from time to time, right? When you step into a new position and it may be a position that highly coveted or something of that nature where you may be the first black person or even you yourself being the first person in this type of position that puts a little bit of pressure on you. Talk about your experiences with dealing with imposter syndrome and how you dealt with it.
Yeah, so I have two kind of vantage points on imposter syndrome. So first, I am going to ask, does anyone else in the room, have you experienced imposter syndrome? I'm going to raise both hands. Okay, so I'm not alone in this. The first, I think for me, was I know that I'm in this role because I earned it. So there's no doubt about that. I've worked with amazing people. I have an amazing team, and together we really do produce the best that there is. So that I have not doubted. Where I had the imposter syndrome was I didn't, how's the best way to put it? I didn't really appreciate the magnitude of my role. And I mentioned Robin earlier because she was in this role when I was just starting out. And, when she would come into town, when, if you got invited to, go to a gala and sit with her, it was a big deal. I was just like, oh my gosh. And I'm in the role now. And I sometimes forget that it's still a big deal because I'm just Courtney. And it was a regional general manager who told me not too long ago, like we were just talking, and I had asked a question. I had sent one of his managers a note just asking a question, simple question. And, he called me to answer it. And I was just like, why are you answering this question? Because I wrote it to your manager. And he was just like, well, do you realize when you ask a question, you're not just asking a question. Like, they're going to stop what they're doing because you just asked a question. And so I felt I had to answer. But again, I didn't realize that was the impact that I had. And so that to me is a form of imposter syndrome because I just watered down, I guess, the importance that my role and that I play in the organization. So, and I was telling Larry last night that we're doing these skip levels with our high potential employees, and I wanted to meet them in person. So if I was in town, I wanted to try to schedule them in person. And so one young lady, after we got through meeting last week, she sat back and she goes, oh my gosh, I'm so happy we had this meeting, but you don't understand, I thought that you were coming here to fire me. And I was just like, what? Like, really? So it's one of those things that I have to remember and be reminded at times. The other side is where, who do you think you are? And I heard this one, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with Brené Brown, but she's an amazing author, she's from the University of Houston to H-Town. But she interviewed Oprah, I don't know how long ago, but Oprah admitted to suffering from imposter syndrome. And hers was this, who do you think you are? So I was like, okay, if Oprah feels this way, then it's okay for me to be here. And that's the one where I think as black people, there's a beauty in our blackness and you come in, we have this confidence, even if we're not 100% there, but we exude it. And at times there's people, and I've heard it before, like they don't know I hear it, but I hear it, where they're just like, oh, she thinks she's this because she's now here, and I should have had that. If you should have had that role, you'd have been in it, right? So, but that's the thing that, when I walk into the room and I'm presenting to the CEO too, and I should be, and I'm the expert in my field. And if someone wants to question that, and I have been questioned before, I very, very delicately and politely let them know that I'm there for a reason. I can answer all the questions. But I mean, I even had it when I was an engineer, because I was a young engineer doing thermal barrier coatings, and someone thought I was an intern, and I was just like, actually, I'm going to teach you how to use this robot, and I'm going to show you how to get this FAA qualification for this repair. But it's, that's the kind of the who do you think you are. It's very easy for us to fall back into that. But if you're there, you earned it, and you show up.
Thank you. So, given where you've been and everything you've learned, what has helped you get more comfortable with how you show up, being that you mentioned that, and how do you help others get comfortable with showing up?
That has been a long journey, but I can safely say, or proudly say, that I'm there 100% today. For me, it was so when I worked in New York for 5-6 years, and when I was there, I was a sales rep for 1 year, and then the rest of my time there, I was a sales leader. And I wore dark colors, black, the navies, muted tones. Didn't want to stand out too much. I've always been natural, but I would straighten the hair. I didn't want to have flyaways. And I always wanted to work in South America. That was my thing. I was going to work in Brazil. Didn't know how I was going to get there, but that's what I wanted to do. So when I had the opportunity to go do that, I did a 360. And the feedback that I got from my colleagues in the Northeast was that they wish I had shared more of myself, because unwritten rule that I always did was you keep work and business separate. Even if you were friends with people at work, they would never know. You all know. So I was like, I understood, though, going to work in Latin America, I have to share more of myself, because culturally, that is what is expected. And so I prepared for that. But when I got down there, it was maybe 2 months in, and someone came and finally pulled me aside and asked me, why was I in mourning? And I was like, am I misdoing the translation here? Like, what do they mean? And I was like, just, can you say it in English just so I make sure I understand? And they said, you always wear black. Why are you so sad? And I'm not sad. So I went, and I would travel to the U.S. once a month. So when I went back to the U.S., I was at Dillard's and Macy's buying all the colors I could find. And I went back down there, and I worked there for 2.5 years. So it was hard finding someone to do the hair. So I let my curls go wild. I was wearing all the colors. And it was in 2018 when the president of Otis Americas at the time had asked me to come back, and to come back to the U.S. in an executive role. And I was like, whew, what do I do? Do I go back to New York, straightening my hair, wearing the dark colors? Do I bring my Latin America self back with all my color and wild hair? And I actually talked to my mother about it, and she was like, do something in the middle, just not too much, Courtney. And but I said, I have gotten comfortable wearing it with me. And so I'm coming back. And if they're not ready for it, they're just going to have to get ready, because there was no one else that looked like me. So who's to say what it should be? So I came back, color, hair, I had braids, different time. I even sat, Tom was the president at the time. I went to his office and explained to him braids and hair extensions. And I was like, I'm going to come back over the weekend, after the weekend, and my hair gonna look different. And we're gonna talk. And I go, I'd rather just have an open conversation about it here than you look in and question it. But I came back, color and all, and I remember one evening I was working late, and I had been back for probably 6 months, and a young lady came into my office and was just like, thank you for wearing braids, because now I know I can do it too. And I was just like, you could have done it regardless, but it's true. If you see it, you can be it. And so that was what solidified, like, I'm not turning back. You're going to take me as I am. And now our company has the, what is it?
As far as come as you are.
Yeah, come into the office.
Self.
Be your authentic self. But it's called, I don't know what it's called. Like, dress for your day.
Yeah, just dress for your day.
Dress for your day and free to be me and all of that. But like what I love about it is because people now can just come as you are. And if you have business with certain clients that may want you to wear your muted tones, wear your muted tones. But we're going to support you coming as you are. And that is powerful. And I believe that I had something to do with that.
Trust me, she did. and that's what's drawn Courtney us together a lot, is that she is authentic and she's not afraid to share her authentic self with our leadership. And that has paved a lot of roads for people to feel comfortable, you know, being who they are, saying what they feel like is on their mind and on their heart, in context, right? And so I thank you for that, Courtney.
Thank you for pushing me.
Let's talk a little bit about corporate America. When we talk about being woke, let's talk about surrounding and building your network in corporate America, right? And what's important about that network to be able to help you be successful and navigate some of the minds that may be in corporate America, particularly for Black people.
Yeah, you know, I think I mentioned the unwritten rules. So, you know, too many Black people shouldn't gather together because then you're having a meeting. Larry, we were in San Diego many years ago, and I think it was all four of us. We're just so happy to be sitting at the table, and legit someone came up and was just like, "What's the meeting about?" And I was like, "Are you serious?" It's like, we're just talking. But you know, that's something that I was always kind of nervous about, and I do believe that there are people who I'm very good friends with at work, and you would never know, and there's a power in that too. But as far as your tribe is what I like to call it. And is it Rachel? Rachel and I were talking out front earlier, and because PepsiCo, and they do invest a lot in development programs for their employees, as does Otis. And so we were sharing about a program, one of the ones that was very meaningful for me, and turns out she was in the inaugural program. And it was something at Dartmouth called Ascent, but that was one of women. And every woman in that Ascent class, I still have some form of contact with today. Now there's a core 5 that I talk to on a regular basis. We still do our calls, and this was like almost 10 years ago. But you know, that was me starting to build a network outside of my company, because I needed, when people know the people that you're talking about, sometimes they're just not able to give you truly an impartial, you know, there's always some kind of feeling there. So having someone from a different organization who has different experiences, they have just been my rock to just really throw different ideas out and to help coach me. Because they actually all became executives before me. And so when it was my time, I was like, hey, like, you know, what do I do? What changes? What should I know? So definitely, if you're in any kind of professional programs, stick with it, connect with people, because you need that outside, you just to bounce ideas off of someone that's not within the company. Now, within the company, you find your people. And for me, it was, because there wasn't many, so it truly was through the employee resource groups. Mm-hmm. And I now say that they are the superpower of our organization, because what I watched was, in a time where the company, quite frankly, didn't really know how to react to what was going on in the world, the ERG, specifically Momentum, the Black ERG, stood up and said, we got this. And they are constantly, and now, you know, the other ERGs look to Momentum as like, we want to be like them, which is awesome. And so we are all working together and collaborating. And, you know, we practice doing, you know, if someone has to do an interview, they'll call and they'll they'll practice with someone else. And because now our leaders, and I'm very involved in as many of them as I can be, it's not so scary for someone to reach out to me. And so people will I do coffee chats. So people will put a coffee chat on my calendar, and they'll, you know, for 30 minutes we'll get to talk. But it's a way to bridge kind of some of the formality and take some of that away, so that you really can start to build connections that's a bit different from your day-to-day business.
Yeah. So we talk about that and about being woke and what it means for the organization. How do you believe through the ERGs have we been able to mold kind of the direction of the company, particularly when it comes to Black people?
Well, let's start with the position that you're in. That was created, Larry's role was created because, so we do a pulse survey. We do it about once a quarter. And what we found was that specifically minorities, but Black people were the lowest scores in the organization. And so the Momentum ERG was asked to do focus groups. Now, we're not trained to do focus groups, but we'll do it. We'll help you out. And so we did these focus groups to really understand why people felt the way they did. And in November of last year, Otis is America's president, the head of HR. Someone on our board came with the Momentum leadership team and met and wanted to hear what they thought should be done to help drive change. And one of those things was to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion leader in the organization. And so, and we said it should be an executive role. And so Larry, that in itself to me.
That was great.
Driving change.
That doesn't mean, that was just the beginning, right? Now the real work starts, which I find every day is a lot of work, right? And so the great thing is that I have a group that I go to with my ERG. The leadership team, and most of us on there are executives or high managers and things of that nature. We share just about everything with one another in confidence. So having a group like that where you have a bunch of your peers or people that are very dependable and high performers in the company that can help you sort through strategy, where you're going, what do you need to get done, where your focus should be, it can't be underestimated.
And Larry, let's just be real. Like, yes, all of us on the leadership group of that ERG, we're all executives now, but we weren't 2 years ago. Some of us weren't 2 years ago, right? We've all grown into it over the past, I'd say, 5 years. So that shows we were there for each other. We figured out, okay, I just got it. How do we get you next? And that was a big thing that, we have 3 new ones this year. And it's deliberate, and we're very, very vocal about, who's next. That's very important.
All right. So we have a few minutes left, and I want to open it up for questions to the audience for Courtney, and so she can provide some insight. Question number one.
Rachel Thomas, PepsiCo. So the murder of George Floyd did make a lot of people that look like us and not look like us very woke within the company. I still see this evolution where people have gotten away from the whole racial equality journey. Not where we've stepped completely back, but that raw emotion that was there in 2020. The emotion that was there in 2021. Then you started hearing, well, wait a minute. What about Hispanics? What about women? And it's like, we haven't even gotten ours yet. Can we get ours out the door before we start cutting everybody else in? And so it's like, how do you shift that conversation back and bring back some of the wokeness? And it's like, it's still happening, but it was something about everybody being shut down in the pandemic that made everybody stop. You turn on the TV, it's still happening. It's plenty of other African-American men, women that have lost their lives, but people seem more numb to it now. How do we get that raw feeling back where we're not compartmentalizing anymore? Because, my running joke, y'all let me stay at home 2.5 years. I'm not emerging like I was before I went in. So how do you get it back to where you can still continue to drive? And I think it's paradigm shift changes that need to happen, not like little things.
No, I agree. So you have to be very deliberate and intentional. And again, some things can be within, what I say grassroots through the ERGs, but at the same time, you need the leadership team to stand up and do something. And so what we've done is we picked an executive sponsor. So people sometimes like, why didn't you become the executive sponsor for Momentum? I could have done that, but I call myself the advisor. I wanted someone that was on, Judy, who's our CEO, I wanted someone on her staff who could really drive and make the change. I can make change, I can, but at Judy's level, I wanted that for our organization. And so Nora is our newest sponsor, which she's been with us for about a year now. And when I tell you, what I'm learning from her is she does not let anyone off the hook. Because we were going and setting meetings kind of asking politely. Nora's putting meetings on calendars like, I want an answer to that question that we had about what you're going to do, pushing the numbers. And there's a time and a place. So we just finished our operating reviews. And, I'm challenging the leadership teams in the Americas on, like, why are the numbers like this? Like, I don't understand this. Or why didn't we go recruit here? Or, I'm ashamed to admit this, but I did not know there was an HBCU week. Did you all know? I knew this year, but I didn't know it goes back from Lyndon B. Johnson establishing it. So the second weekend in September, HBCU week, I went to an HBCU, like, why aren't we there? We're gonna be there next year. So it's things like that we have to just say in the face. And then what I'd say for our brothers and sisters, like, so the Latinas, Asian people of color, I know the Asian ERG came to us when a lot of the violence going on in their communities was, and it's still happening, but they came to us to ask us, how can we talk about this? And so the Momentum ERG has something called Breaking Bread, Breaking Barriers, but it's a program that we put together to help people have those tough conversations in a very safe environment. And it's been rolled out across the globe. And it even won a CEO award. But that's kind of something that we consistently do to be able to have those discussions so that it doesn't go away. Because we have one coming up at the end of the month, right?
That's correct.
So.
Yeah, and I'll say the most important thing there, for it not to die, you have to have leadership. Leadership will drive it, because if it's on your leader's agenda, it's on everybody's agenda. And so that's how you keep it alive, and you make sure you continue to make those steps. And it's not going to happen overnight, right? We didn't get there overnight, and it's going to take some time to get us where we need to be. But we're implementing things such as accelerator programs, where we're taking people and putting them on fast tracks to get them into middle management, to get them to executive levels. And so they have to become places where you're going to focus and put your efforts and energy.
And next is to tie it to compensation, because that's how it's really going to get done.
Yep. Yeah, we have tied all our initiatives to our executives' compensation. So, money's tough.
That's the hard part. It took several years, but we got it.
Hi, Lena Johnson, Charles Schwab and Company out of Indianapolis. You talked about remembering the importance of your role and how didn't appreciate the role. How do you deal with or have that awareness or humbleness about being the only one and feeling the pressure and having that weight on your shoulder of you being the face?
Yeah. So I used to get some haters because I was the face, because I was the only one. I was in the annual report a couple times. I've seen pictures of me places. I was like, where did that come from? So one thing that I have tried to do is I don't want to shy away. I need to be present. It's not comfortable for me. I'm an introvert. I'm INTJ. Remember, I'm an engineer by background. But because having people come and tell me, seeing me on TV or seeing the interview that I did or reading this, what it did for them, that I have a responsibility. Now, the other responsibility that I have is to bring people with me, right? So sometimes I get asked to do a lot, and sometimes I'm like, well, why don't we let so-and-so do it? It's their turn, let them have a chance. And again, it's still me, but now there's you and Crawford and some others. But I think we're trying to spread the love. And then, to stay humble, I have a sister and a brother that remind me every day who I am. And then I do have, what I call advisors, people, my personal board. You may hear people talk about having your personal board. But I have people who are very close to me who I tell them, if I start to step outside, like hold that mirror up quickly and remind me where I came from, because I will always be Courtney. I've never met a stranger. And I'm a servant leader, and my job is to help people in my organization or not in my organization get to whatever it is that they want to do.
I think we have time for a couple more questions. Any others?
So you've given me an opportunity to self-reflect in my own role and organization. I'm Rebecca with Capital One. And now I'm thinking, maybe I'm becoming a little more woke, but now I'm thinking about how the org is set up and wondering if it is in some way strategically set up in a way that keeps us Black folk from getting to the executive level by placing 2-3 levels of our white executives or white managers in between us. So it takes longer and it's much harder to get to those levels, because even though they may, be ticking or checking off the boxes for diversity and inclusiveness and the talent and the acquisition and all these things that they're supposed to be doing, but is it strategically being set up in a way that it makes it harder for us by placing these levels, different levels in between the two? So I was just having an epiphany moment, a woke moment, wait a minute. Because what you're saying is you're talking about how your responsibility was not just to get yourself there, but to also bring others with you. But that's not always an opportunity depending on who you're with and where you're at. So thank you for that.
I'll just to add to that a little bit. So one of the reports I started running this year was how many managers, directors are on executives' succession plans, meaning Black people, people of color, and that'll tell you a lot. If you just run that report and actually see who's on the succession plans from a people of color standpoint, it will tell you what's your gap. What programs do you need to implement to make sure you're getting people into those slots, so to make sure that they're being considered for these promotional roles that come open. Because if you don't, then what happens is the gap gets bigger over time. And then before you know it, you have people that leave the organization, quiet quitting or whatever you want to call it, because they're frustrated and they're not getting opportunities and things of that nature. All right, one more question, then we got to go.
You're going to keep saying one more. They have to just kick us out. Let them kick us out.
How you doing? My name is Trey Heflin King. I'm with ITW. And so my question is around, as you mentioned, as you started, wokeness being used more now. And we've been talking about it in a very positive way. How do you navigate that conversation, or what advice can you give about, that negative connotation on woke? Anytime you try to do any inclusion, or you being woke, right? So what advice can you give there?
I'm a very direct person. So, I had a colleague ask me about how would I feel if there was a white male ERG or a white ERG. And I said, well, so I don't even have to answer, you understand, right? But what I appreciate is that he came to me and asked the question, but I had a relationship with him where he could. But I had to put myself in the right mindset, because you're not always ready to have that conversation, right? And it's still hard, and actually something that I just did recently. So I definitely talk to a lot of people. I'm particular about who I mentor, and then I sponsor people. And sponsorship and mentorship are two different things. I'm sure there's a whole nother session on that. But I recently just started mentoring a white man. And it's not that I haven't done it before, but this is one that was a bit more vocal about that wokeness. And so I didn't want to at first, but I thought this could be a learning experience for me as well. And he's gonna understand that I didn't just get here because I'm checking a few boxes. I earned it, and he's going to respect that. And I can tell you, the initial conversation, I was nervous about how it was gonna go, but he's opening my eyes because I need to understand how, it can't just be my perspective, right? And so it's that self-awareness that you were talking about. Having these discussions is key. And it's okay for people not to agree, because there's things I don't necessarily agree with. But if you can have a dialogue and both respect each other, you're fine. And it's not always easy. Like I said, you have to be in the right spirit to and I'll tell people, like, are you ready to receive it? Or they want to give me some information. I'm not ready yet. Give me a day, maybe a week, but we'll get there.
Yeah. And again, the foundation of that is empathy and respect, right? And if you can't get that, then, yeah, you got to consider your circumstances. One last question. I promise. I
One
promise
more,
this
and
is
then
it.
it's gonna be another.
This is it. Well, I got two. I got one here and one there. We're done. I promise.
Just a quick question. You guys talked about how you just formulated this. How has that helped you retention-wise? Have you seen that you're able to keep more now, or have you seen that it's harder?
I'll let Larry answer that because this is his space. But
And when you say keep more, you mean black employees, right?
Black, yeah.
Yes. So right now, I'd say we're kind of flat. And here's part of our problem, our crux, right? Is that we are in every major city. And so a lot of times what happens is you may be the only one or two that's in that branch in that major city, right? Hence the purpose or the goal of our ERG is to bring connectivity, right? And so it's difficult not being able to be in every employee's situation or colleague's situation to understand what they're going through on a day-to-day basis. And so that's why we started having those coffee talks and just reaching out to people and trying to connect with them and talk to them to understand that so we can impact that more. So my goal is to drop our attrition by 4% by next year.
But it's not fast enough. Just saying, Larry.
Hey, it's Tanya again. So I don't necessarily have a question, but one of my life mantras is just be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Staying in that uncomfortable space, and anytime that you get comfortable, you need to leave the room. You need to get into a bigger room, a different room. And I think one of the things, epiphany, use your word, that kind of hit me, because I do a lot of mentoring and sponsoring with folks underneath me, is the fact that I want to expound that concept to meaning if you are a person of color, if you're black and you're in a room and you're uncomfortable, that's where you should be.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it should just be the job or the knowledge perspective. It's also in your skin. If you're uncomfortable, be okay with being uncomfortable until you get comfortable. So, thank you.
I agree. I tell that is my team, anyone that comes and works in my department knows you're gonna get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's been my life, because I told you I'm an INTJ. So I prefer to be in the background. This is not comfortable for me, but I'm learning to get through it, so.
Yeah. So thank you all for joining us for this session. Thank you, Courtney.
This was amazing. I'm happy to see you all. You can talk to me later.
All right.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thank you.